Hello, friends. Happy New Year. I'm so excited we're here. Happy 2024. Happy end of Mercury retrograde. I am so obsessed with the fact that Mercury retrograde ended on the same day as the new year began. What a good freaking feeling. We're here. Hi. Hi. Welcome to Lead to Gold. This is the podcast devoted to discussing all things growth and wellness. And today we are going to just be rehashing this past year, talking about some of the overall lessons that I'm taking away from this past year. And with that, let's also explore what to look ahead toward in 2024. I'm super psyched that this just all worked out, divine timing, and this episode was meant to come out on the first day of the year. So here we are, and I hope that this very first day of 2024 is treating you well. I hope you are feeling good from last night, whatever you were up to. And even if you're listening to this days, weeks, whatever later, I am hoping to make this a conversation that kind of encompasses the past and the future and the present all together. So maybe this won't be the most relevant a couple weeks or months or whatever past the new year, but nonetheless, if you're here, listen in, let's talk about it. Let's see what we're feeling for the overall year ahead. And I have mentioned this before, Lead to Gold as a podcast is, by the way, now officially 1 year old because it came out on January 1st last year, 2023. So yay for that. But I did mention in those first couple of episodes last year that I'm really not much of a New Year's resolution person. I think I was for a long time. And I still like to think about, okay, well, what are my intentions? What are my focuses going into this year? Always super helpful to not only have that, but look back on the previous year or years if there are things that you've been kind of working on in the long term. So not a resolution girly, but very much like an intention girly. And I would love to sort of share those things in the midst of talking about like the overall lessons from 2023 and where I believe we as a collective are headed from here. So that's why I have called this episode sort of the collective energy for 2024, because this isn't something that I feel is applicable to only me, but in a much, much larger sense, what I'm picking up on as sort of the main themes that are carrying us all from this past year into the next. So a lot of that will be coming from little tidbits of previous episodes. If you've been here for a while, some of this stuff may be familiar, but I'm really trying to just kind of collect all of it and talk about, all right, what is this? What have we been experiencing and where are we meant to go from here? So let's get into it. I would love to just kind of quickly state where I've been the past couple of weeks and what's been going on in my life. And I'm recording this just a couple of days before the new year, but I have gotten through the holidays. Christmas is over, and I've been so fortunate to be able to spend the last couple of days with really good friends and family, lots of people from my past who are kind of home for the holidays, and it's just been so, so wonderful. With all of that, if you read my last blog post, I'll post this up in the show notes, but, you know, friends and family and kind of like returning to your old life, like from far, far past, can sometimes be a little bit daunting. And I know for a lot of people, it's more than daunting. It's depressing. It's hard. It's like really not pleasant for many of us who have complicated family stuff going on. It's not the easiest thing in the world to return back to that, even though we sort of have to almost at this point in the year, unless you are in like a no contact situation. But nonetheless, it can be weird. And I will say it's like, I try not to focus on that, but I'd be lying if I said there aren't like times where I'm having conversations with my family or just people from my past that I'm like, oh man, this is like really bringing up a lot for me right now. And it's kind of making me feel small and childish and sad in a way. But I'm very grateful and I'm very lucky to be able to say that that sensation doesn't last very long with the people that I've been able to surround myself with. It's much more enveloped in love and effort. It's like we're all really trying to be there for each other and just make the mood light and make meals together, clean up together. It's all more about like the gift giving than the gift getting. And I'm very grateful for that. My family has gone through a couple of deaths this year. There are some older family members that aren't doing so well. So the Christmas dinner was a little quiet, but I think we were all mostly just like really loving up on each other and really grateful to be with the people who were there. So bittersweet, but nonetheless very nice. And I'm just really happy to be able to say that that was the vibe. And then the day after Christmas was one of my best friends since middle school's birthday. And we met up with a bunch of people from middle school and high school. And again, it's like, you know, some people kind of think of that and shudder. They're like, oh God, I do not want to talk to those people. But I very much do. And like my group from middle and high school, I still love every single one of them to death. So anytime I get to see them is so welcomed. I can't get enough time. One of my friends spent the night with me that night after the festivities, and we probably stayed up until like 2 a.m. And I was like, no, it's not enough time. It's not enough time. I want to stay up all night and talk to you and like catch up. And I just like, never want to let go. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's been sort of the ongoing feeling for this little holiday break. And now I'm kind of starting to get back into the swing of things. Like today, I spent a long time sort of planning my curriculum for school for the rest of the semester. And I'm just a little sad because the festivities, they're not over, but like they kind of are. And I know that a lot of the people that I just saw over the past couple of days, I'm not going to see for several months or maybe even years. And it's just hitting and I'm a little sad about it. So in any case, if you're in a similar position, you know, you're kind of having the post-holiday emotional hangover or real hangover or whatever, I'm right there with you. So let's get into sort of what to really focus on and look back on for this past year and look ahead to some brighter things or some more hopeful things. And I'm really happy that you're here to do that with me. So today's structure, I want to kind of make this fun, and I have 3 big lessons from 2023. Got to be cheeky like that. 3 big lessons from 2023, and then I will share with you all 4 assignments. I'm playing on the teacher thing, okay? 4 assignments for 2024, right? 3 for 2023, 4 for 2024. Let's get into it. The first big takeaway from this past year, and you may be familiar with this if you have been listening to Led to Gold or reading my blog posts for a while, because this has been a big theme, definitely in the last couple of months, but it is basically just facing the facts of our current social media climate. And it is a huge part of our lives, whether we are just sort of passive consumers or whether we are chronically online or whether we have children who we are trying to sort of navigate that world with. It's a really big deal. And I have to say, I'm happy that this is something that really came through so clearly for me at the end of the year, because I feel like it is giving me sort of a new sense of purpose in terms of what to talk about, not only here, but with my students. Media is communication. Media is literacy, right? being able to navigate that world is a form of literacy. So what better thing to teach high school juniors than how to navigate the things that they're seeing in the media? That's just to kind of preface, but the ultimate lesson and takeaway that I want to get at from this past year in particular, is that the really icky feelings that we experience with a lot of media, the fear, the distraction that it causes, the anxiety that comes up when we hear a bunch of bad news all the time, none of these things are going away. None of these things are going away. We have got to be more diligent than ever before when it comes to looking at the news, looking at social media, taking in all of this constant information. This feels so important for me to share because I recognize how much of our lives this takes up. I'll give you a quick idea to kind of put it in perspective. And I encourage you to look at this too if you don't already know. I teach media literacy as a whole unit to my high school juniors. And the very first question that I have them think about, that I have them discuss, is how much time do you think you spend on your phone every day? And that's just your phone. That does not include using your Chromebooks at school. That does not include watching YouTube at home on the computer while you eat dinner or whatever. How much time do you think you spend on your phone every day? And immediately they all start kind of like giggling and laughing and being like, oh God, I don't want to look, because it's an embarrassing number. It's an embarrassing number for most of us. I will say some people are pleasantly surprised, myself included, although it's just my phone. That's not, like I just said, that's not the amount of time I spend on the computer, watching YouTube, doing podcast stuff, doing work stuff. Even though I am a teacher, a lot of my job consists of doing stuff on the computer. So the screen time is not low. Let me just get that out of the way. But my phone screen time was surprisingly low. Anyway, I let them talk about it for a minute. I let them think. And then after a couple minutes, I'm like, okay, if you want to check, go into your settings on your phone and see what your screen time is. And they all are like, oh my God. And in some classes, depending on the kids that I have, we'll actually even like run a contest to see who has the most screen time. And you guys, it was like 12 or 14 hours. I'm like, how? What? That's insane. So all of that to say, this is a huge problem. I mean, what do you think they're doing on their phone all day? They are looking at media, right? You are probably doing the same thing. Like I said, go ahead and check your screen time if you are brave enough. It's something that affects all of us. And I don't know that I can confidently say that everybody doom scrolls or that everybody knows what I'm talking about when I say that, but I am confident in knowing that media is not positive all the time. We know that. It's meant to get a reaction out of people. It's meant to rile us up. It's meant to anger us. If you go back and listen to some of my older episodes about like doom scrolling, and just the last one, actually, Rage Bait, was getting pretty deep into this idea of just like the media is not out there for neutrality. It is out there to get a reaction because people want views. People want engagement. All of that to say, the fear that comes with that, the amount of distraction that we face day in and day out, and the just like I said, icky feelings that come up from absorbing this stuff all the time without presence. It's not going away. So what we need to do is take back control. And that's not easy, right? It's not as simple as putting an Instagram timer on your phone, because I can tell you right now, I'll put an Instagram timer on my phone all day, every day. But if I go past that thing, I'm turning it off because I'm not done yet, because I'm a stupid little animal at the end of the day. What I mean to get at here is just that we do need to work on our overall discipline. And if this isn't a problem for you in your life, great, that's wonderful. But I think I'd be hard pressed to find people my age who are not struggling with this at least a little bit. So becoming more aware of the things that you're consuming, like we talked about in the Rage Bait episode 27, to practice discipline and in general just becoming a little bit more aware and present when absorbing media, that's going to be a huge, huge help for the coming years, because as I said, this is not going away and it's not going to get any easier to do. I don't know if I want to go straight into like the AI deep fake stuff, but that's the same kind of culture I'm talking about when I say that these things are not going away. That kind of technology is going to get better, and it's going to be easier to manipulate people who don't know any different. And we need to stay on top of it. We need to be vigilant. We need to absolutely practice critical thinking when absorbing all kinds of media, news, beliefs, spiritual stuff. I've had episodes on that as well about how manipulative the spiritual circles on social media can be. I would like to say that there's no safe pocket of topics or niches that you could be into that are immune to this. We have to be vigilant. So that's that. In that initial takeaway, trying to focus on gratitude at the same time, trying to focus on the good physical things in our lives, the things that are offline, the things that we can see, the people that we know, the things that we have available to us in our world, in our local world. That is a good practice to also kind of use in tandem with critical thinking online, because we are still humans. We are still dumb little animals at the end of the day. And that is a compliment. I love us cute, dumb little animals. But remembering that can be a nice combat against this new and ever changing, ever aggressively permeating social media landscape. Just remembering, hey, there's a whole other world out there that I can tap into. So that's lesson number 1, or takeaway number 1. And takeaway number 2, which kind of follows that quite nicely, is that I believe tapping into gratitude is an essential skill at this time. When we are, this really parallels quite well, when we are so inundated with bad news, when we are constantly hearing about things that we kind of can't control or that we can't do anything about. It's not to say that we really, really can't do anything about it, but it feels like such a huge, huge issue. And what is little old me going to be able to do to end the war in Palestine, or end climate change, or get our political leaders to understand what's really important to their citizens? These are big problems. And so when we start getting so wrapped up in all of that, it becomes much harder to see the good in the world. And this is not by any means me preaching love and light to you all, because I am not a believer in that. But when we step into these really dark places, and when we start to feel like those dark places and these dark things are the only things that are present in life, that's a really bad place to be. It's not healthy, it's not sustainable, and it can be very dangerous for us, for our mental health, for our well-being. It's not good to stay in a place like that. So when we start to tiptoe into that, which a lot of the reason I'm talking about this right now is because this has been very, very present for me. Just the other day, I was really, really sad about everything going on. I felt like I couldn't escape the bad news cycles. I felt like the government is failing us, and I start getting into this thought loop of everything sucks, everything's horrible, and there's nothing I can do about it. And it's really hard when you're there to reach back out and find gratitude, but it is a necessary skill. It is something that if we're not practiced at doing yet, if we're not able to really just kind of sit for a few seconds at a time and be like, wow, I'm so grateful for all the people I just spent the holidays with. I'm so grateful that my grandparents are still alive and healthy. I'm so grateful that my brother and his wife are able to come up from Atlanta for the holidays to spend several days with us, and the fact that I get several days with them all in a row. Yeah, I might be sad that it ended, but the fact that it happened, I can't even explain how good it feels. That's stepping back out of the dark space and into the light. And we need to practice that if we aren't already doing so, because without it, we easily fall into dread and hopelessness. So practicing presence, practicing being aware and being in the moment when good things are happening is also a really nice tie-in to being able to look back on that moment later and being like, wow, I'm so grateful that that happened. I'm so happy that I got that experience. But at the same time, gratitude does not just have to come from moments like that. It can be things that you have. It can be, gratitude for the fact that I have a nice microphone that I can do this podcast on, or that when my partner's gone during the day, he lets me use his computer, which is so much nicer than my laptop. And quite literally right now, my cat is basking in a big ol' drip of sunlight on the carpet, and she just looks so cute and so comfy. And I'm just so grateful to have her around, especially during these long holidays where I sit at home all day. So it's nice to have company. It's stuff like that. There is so much that we can tap into in our current waking life that can not have us distracted and not have us diminish all of the horrible, awful stuff that's going on in the world, but it helps us to keep going. It helps us to remind ourselves that, hey, life is still good at the end of the day. Maybe not for everybody, maybe not right this second, but I have these things that allow me to keep going, and therefore that allow me to continue to do the hard work for all of the things that I care about and all of the things that I want to see get better in the world. So gratitude is an essential skill for perseverance at the end of the day, if nothing else. Not to mention, it does just make us feel better. My third takeaway from 2023 is having the conversations that need to be had no matter how difficult they are. This is a takeaway that has come up for many, many reasons. One of which, though, is because of failure and because of the amount of conversations that I should have had that didn't happen, and that I'm not saying I regret the way that I handled certain situations, but I know that had I been a little bit braver and been a little bit more able to speak up when things were not serving me, when I was being treated poorly, whatever it might have been, it would have probably served me better to be able to say it. And the other reason that this became such a strong takeaway for me is that in the times where it did happen, where the hard conversations did come out, things were made instantly better. Instantly. So I want to get into this one a little bit because this is huge. It really is. I'll start with an example that did not go over so well that really inspired me to become better about this. So at the beginning of the year, I've mentioned this before, but I was working with a colleague who we did not communicate well in general. And it was one of those sort of tricky situations where I could not tell if I was being gaslit or if we just didn't see eye to eye, or if I was really the problem and who's really the problem here. I don't know, but something is not working. And it really, really messed with my headspace when I'm at work, which is like the worst place to be out of focus or dysregulated. But it was unfortunate because we have a job to do, and without being able to communicate effectively, it made the job very hard. Not only that, but our job requires interacting with other people's children and children who depend on us for a quality education, for things to get done. And with that missing component of good communication and teamwork, I knew that we were not giving them the quality education that they deserved. And I knew that probably both of us could have been doing a much better job, but there was just that block of like, I can't work with this person effectively, and very daunting, which teaching a class of high schoolers should not be daunting, but it very much was, because I just did not want to communicate with or see this person. And all in all, there were a few instances where some things were said that I absolutely should have stood up for myself and been like, you do not get to talk to me that way. And I didn't. And in fact, I even took it upon myself to be like, I'm sorry, I'm the one who messed up, or like, I'm sorry, what can I do to make this situation better? And immediately after saying that, I was like, why the fuck am I apologizing? Why the fuck am I the one who is being made to feel like I'm in the wrong? Now, I am all for nuance. I am all for seeing both sides. And I absolutely gave this situation a lot of thought, to the point where I'm like, okay, maybe I can see where they're coming from. Maybe I can see why they're frustrated. But nonetheless, I did not deserve to be treated the way that I was treated. Did I handle it? Yes. Could I have handled it a little bit more assertively? Absolutely. The good news is I no longer work with this person, so the situation is kind of like off my plate now. I can go on with my life and not have to think about it or worry about it, but I still think about how I could have handled that better. How I could have stood up for myself with more dignity and more grace, honestly, because it's not like I wanted to bash this person and be mean and be rude, but standing up for yourself oftentimes feels like you're being a bitch, especially when you're not used to doing it. And that is definitely where I'm at. So anyway, after this situation occurred, I made it a goal to be more honest and to have honest conversations when and where possible. I am by no means perfect in doing this. It's only been really like 8 months since this has really started to become a priority for me to get better at. Communication, as I've talked about before on this podcast, is going to be a lifelong lesson for me. I already know that because I feel it in my bones. I did not grow up with the best styles of communication between me and my family members or my friends in the past, and I know that this is something that I'm going to have to work through and reestablish my beliefs and my actions toward. I'll give you another example. Just the other day, when I think I mentioned this just a minute ago, when I was really, really down and sad about the world, I, instead of being honest with my partner and saying, I'm just really sad and I don't know what to do about it. I don't know where to put all of this. I don't know what my role is in any of this. And I'm just feeling kind of hopeless, in all honesty. Instead of being honest about that, I was grumpy and irritable and short, and I took it out on him. And that right there is a pinnacle example of why healthy communication is so important to me, because anytime that kind of communication happens, especially when it's from me, I'm like, oh God, like I need to work on this. I know I need to work on this. So in any case, that is part of this overall takeaway. Have the conversation that needs to be had. It doesn't need to be a hard conversation. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about here. It doesn't need to be a breakup or an intervention. It can be something as simple as, I'm really sad today and I'm really sorry if I am acting differently, but this is why I'm sad. This is why the emotions are coming up. That's hard for me to admit. That's a hard conversation. I have been practicing this more this year, just in terms of like talking to students. That is one place where I have found good practice with being blatantly honest, but not disrespectful, not mean, not rude, and really honing in on what it feels like to be brave and say the things that scare me. Maybe this doesn't sound like a good quality for a high school teacher, but I hate confrontation. I hate yelling at my students, or not even yelling. I shouldn't even use that word. I hate disciplining my students. I hate having to have hard conversations with my students. But I'm working on forcing myself to do it when a situation arises in which a student needs to be talked to, or a group of students need to be talked to. And my hope in doing this more frequently when it's necessary, I'm not just finding any excuse to get on a student, but when it is necessary, my hope in being direct and assertive but not aggressive is going to maybe help them to see I'm allowed to have these conversations too. I'm allowed to go about my day, and when things bother me, I'm allowed to speak up about it, because I don't know about you all, but I feel like this is something that we haven't really been prioritizing as a culture lately. It's almost like it's sort of in vogue to be passive, and it's very, very difficult for most people to speak how they feel. And even so, now it's like kind of getting mixed in with, hey, if like something that somebody's doing is bothering you, it's almost like some people view it as Karen behavior. And that's not the truth. We have every right to call things out when they are unfair or unjust or hurtful. And all that being said, my point in practicing this, especially in front of my students and with my students, is the hope that they learn for themselves as they get older that it's okay for them to do the same thing, but with grace. And I'm happy to say that I have had many good and beneficial and meaningful conversations with students, even in the past couple of weeks, that have yielded great results. So in all honesty, having those kinds of conversations with my students, I'm not even joking, that in and of itself was terrifying. I was shaking talking to them because I hate doing that, but it's good practice. And hopefully in the next year, and then some perhaps, I can start to really practice that more with more people in my life, not just my students, but my loved ones, my family, anywhere that a hard conversation needs to happen, which for me is a lot of confrontational conversations. They're all hard. So I don't know exactly where you might land on that spectrum, but if this applies to you, that's a big takeaway. Now, the last little instance of this that I want to chat about before we move into lessons for 2024 is, what if that conversation just can't happen? And I know that there are situations in which they just, for whatever reason, aren't able to happen. Maybe we don't see that person in person very often, or maybe we don't feel safe around that person, whatever it may be. I know that this is also a situation that a lot of people face and that I have also faced in this year. So the course of action that I took in this situation was to put the power back in my own hands. And again, I felt like a bitch. I felt like this is not really ultimately what I wanted to do, but it serves as a plan B for when this conversation just isn't feasible. And in this case for me, it was a friendship that I know has sort of run its course. It has not felt good for a really long time. And I made the decision to block that person. And again, I felt awful about it. I felt horrible because I want nothing more than to be able to see them and talk through this and explain where I'm coming from and why this isn't working for me anymore. But I know that that person is not going to make time for me, and that person is not going to go out of their way to see me. So I blocked them because I don't want to know anymore. I don't want to see all of the things and the people that they do make time for, knowing that I'm not one of them. So that was hard. That was really hard. But in a way, it's a way to bring the power that you deserve back to your own self. And again, I still have conflicting feelings about it. I still wish that that was not the way that it had to be handled. But at the end of the day, I've been waiting for this conversation for years and it hasn't happened. So I'm going to take that next step and just say, you know what? Like, this isn't the energy that I want to be carrying around anymore. I don't want to wait anymore. I need to do something about this and take the next step forward, which is the healing of losing a friendship. So that's that. All of these things, if you need a quick little recap, big takeaways from 2023. Number 1, the distractions, the anxieties, all of the bad, gross feelings that we get from social media and media in general are not going away. So we need to be diligent about how we consume it and how much we're taking in. Number 2, tapping into gratitude is an essential skill. It is essential for being able to go on living when a lot of the world does feel scary, and a lot of what is going on, a lot of the things that we're seeing, we really do not have a lot of control over. We can do what we can do, but in order to continue to do that work, we have to carry gratitude in our hearts to kind of act as fuel to keep going. And number 3, have the conversations, no matter how hard, no matter what they are. And if you can't, bring the power back into your own hands by whatever means necessary. And let me clarify. I don't mean by being outwardly mean or forceful or harsh or inconsiderate. There are endless reasons for why people may be acting the way they're acting, and we may never know the reason why. But still taking that and acting from grace, acting from love, and just moving on with our own lives when this conversation is not possible, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. Are we ready for some homework? For some take-home assignments for 2024? I sure am, because that is right in my job qualities. So, hope you're here for it. Again, I'm having a little fun with this episode, but I'll give a little backstory really quick as to kind of like what inspired me to talk about it in this way. And I'm also trying to tap into this part of my life a little bit more in 2024. And that is a little bit of the Astro Host stuff, but more specifically, a little bit of the human design girly stuff, because I've talked about it a little bit on previous episodes, but I am a reflector, and I just think that's a really cool thing to know about myself. If you are unfamiliar with human design, I'll give you a really quick rundown of what it means to be a reflector. So one thing that is distinctive about reflectors is that we have all of our centers open. And what that means is basically just different parts of the body. So for instance, there's the head or the crown, which kind of relates to like your inspiration and your ideas. There's the third eye, there's the throat. A lot of these are pretty closely lined up with chakras, but they all sort of represent like different parts of the body. So yeah, head is the inspiration, the heart is your willpower and your empowerment, the sacral is desires and energy, the root is like time and pressure and feeling at home. So basically, all of these things are different roles in sort of keeping the peace and the cohesion of yourself and the world around you. And when you have these centers open, that means that you don't have a lot of authority in those places. As a reflector, all of my centers are open, which means that instead of getting sort of inner influence, I get a lot of outer influence. Everything in my external world affects me, probably way more than I realize it does. And I recognize that this is really initially what I thought when I was learning about being a reflector. It sounds similar to how people might describe an empathic person, but I guess it's a little bit different. I don't know. What I do know is that I have to take a lot of time for myself. A lot, because people's energy reflects on me. And a lot of what I take in on a daily basis, especially working at a school where I am just surrounded by a lot of chaos all day, every day. It's something that I sort of need to purge frequently. So it can be a lot, but it can also be kind of cool. I am still pretty unfamiliar with human design. If this is not your cup of tea, so be it. That's cool. That's great. I have lots and lots to learn, so I'm probably not doing the most amazing job explaining it, but I am trying to tap into a little bit more of my role as a reflector in the coming years. And according to some readings that I've gotten, shout out to Nadia, we had an episode a couple months back, I am the type of person, or a reflector is the type of person to kind of look out at their community and be able to prescribe what is needed. Or perhaps we have more of a perceptive sense of what's going on and what needs to happen in order for things to become more successful, for things to operate more smoothly, whatever it may be. So I am saying this now because I'm taking all of these lessons from 2023, and though they were big themes for me, I sense that they were also very, very, very big themes for a lot of people. And especially now, as we move into the next year and so many things are turbulent and there's so much going on in the world that feels scary and sticky and hard and difficult. And so many people are talking about how we're sort of experiencing this spiritual revolution, a revolution in general, the crumbling of capitalism. It's like there's a lot riding on the collective energy right now. So as a reflector, I'm attempting to kind of see what it is that we need to focus on to make this ride go a little bit more smoothly. This is not to say that everything is going to be perfect if everybody does this, because what do I know? I'm just one little reflector in a sea of many. But if I had to give us a little bit of advice or some things to hone in on, focus on for the coming year, it would be these 4 things. So the first one is to practice radical honesty with yourself and with other people in your life. And maybe this is a buzzword. I've seen the word radical put in front of a lot of things lately. And honestly, for the past couple of years, I think it's kind of been a little bit of a linguistic trend. So I want to sort of break down what it means when I say radical honesty versus just being honest. There is actually a famous book and a famous sort of like theory of ideal living that is called radical honesty. And in this definition, it means like you tell the truth 100% of the time. You don't even tell white lies ever. That's not exactly what I'm getting at, but for me, radical honesty is being so transparent that it would be hard for you to even lie to yourself. And that's some really, really hard work. But we know how we feel, and we know what's going through our bodies and the sorts of emotions that are coming up, the things that are bothering us. And also, we know our own shortcomings. So becoming radically honest in that way helps us to identify what we could be working on or what we could be spending more time on to better ourselves and better our relationships with others. Case in point, what I mentioned just a couple minutes ago about not being honest with my partner about how upset and sad and sort of hopeless I was feeling the other day led to him thinking that I was mad at him, or him thinking that I was taking my anger out from some other just like small thing that happened, taking it out on him, which was not the case. But because I couldn't outwardly say, I'm sad, I'm in a funk right now, I don't really know quite what to do about it right in this moment, but it's not you. Without having the immediate ability to say that, it kind of affected our relationship temporarily. So it's something that I think we could all practice. Being honest with ourselves, being honest with how we truly feel about a situation, about what's going on in the world, about a person that we are interacting with, and then, even harder, stating that when it's necessary. Outwardly stating, this is what's bothering me, or this is what I am experiencing emotionally right now, and this is what I need. So it's not all about us, even though stating it in that way might seem like it's about us. It's really kind of saving the people around you from, well, why is she acting like that? Or why are they being weird? Like, did I do something? Are they mad at me? Whatever. I'm thinking of it in a certain situation right now, but you get the idea. Radical honesty is something that really saves a lot of relationship dynamics, but also helps us to get more in tune with what helps us get through tough emotions. Or maybe there's something that we do feel hopeless about, or that we are not pleased with in our lives. Well, is there anything I can do that I'm not currently doing? Am I thinking about this in a skewed way? Maybe I'm being a little bit narrow-minded. Maybe there are more options here. So that is the practice of just getting really clear about the truth. And the final thing I'll say on radical honesty is, in situations like that where overthinking obviously gets very confusing, being radically honest about an emotion, because we know our emotions, we know what we're feeling. We might not know why in that moment, but being able to be radically honest with a loved one and say, I'm feeling so hopeless and guilty and sad, and I don't know why. What is going on here? Having a trusted person that you can speak to about this can really open up the doors to understanding the emotion even more. They can ask you questions. They can be like, well, did you read something today that upset you? What happened today? Or, where do you think this is coming from? And then you can start to hypothesize and actually talk through it. And just like talk therapy, being able to have a person there for you who wants to get to the bottom of this with you can be so helpful. It can clear so much of the gross, icky feelings that we may be having. So that right there is the purpose for radical honesty. Okay, number 2, recognize your distractions and limit them. That's a big one. And maybe some of the weird emotional stuff can be cleared up by doing this as well. Recognize your distractions and limit them. One thing, I'll also keep on the Astro Ho shtick for one more moment here. One thing that makes this conversation really nice right now is that we are in the middle of Capricorn season, and this season is known to be the perfect time to kind of reestablish our norms for our own selves, for our wellness, for our lives. And it serves as a sort of reset, especially right here in early Capricorn at the end of a calendar year, at the very beginning of a new season. We're experiencing a lot of endings and beginnings all at the same time. So this is an opportune time. Maybe you don't think of it as Capricorn season, but maybe you think of it as the New Year's resolution, whatever you want to call it. Use this as an opportunity to take stock of what takes up a lot of your time and doesn't need to. For me, I can tell you right now, that is the phone. And we've already talked about this as well. So whatever it may be, if there are specific social media sites that you can nail down, or time sucking activities that you do on the regular basis that you really maybe don't need to be doing, take stock of that and see how you can reframe your relationship with those things. Am I going to stop using social media? No, because I have a podcast to promote, and I love communicating with people on Instagram, on Threads. I love getting in touch with you all. I'm not going to stop getting in touch with you all because it really means so much to me to have that community in a space like Instagram. But I know that I'm undisciplined in the amount of time that I spend on Instagram, especially not really doing podcast or blog or communications related things. I'm just scrolling through the explore page or looking at memes or watching reels that don't really pertain to me. So that is something that I need to get a little bit more tough about on myself and practice some self-discipline there. So recognize that. Use the time that we are in currently to give yourself a space to reprioritize, let go of some things, dust out the cabinets, do what you got to do, but figure out what your distractions are, figure out what is sucking away the time that you feel like you don't have, because trust me, you do have it. You just might need to take some time away from other things that aren't serving you quite as well. So think about that. All right, number 3, and I'm going to keep this one brief because I don't think there's a whole lot to say on this, but a big assignment, something that I think a lot of us could also practice with, very similar to being radically honest, but also just radically loving and understanding. So what I mean by that is not immediately reacting when things happen, things that frustrate us in particular, but instead taking a moment when we are able, when we remember to kind of look at the situation from a broader perspective and sort of question, okay, why might this person be acting this way? Or do I really have the full picture here to judge whether or not I am completely in the right? You know what I mean? So prioritize love. Prioritize acting from a place of love and understanding rather than immediate reaction. I think a big reminder here too is that most of us are just trying to get through the day. Most of us are just trying to do the best we can. And maybe a lot of people don't have others at the forefront of their mind, but they are genuinely just trying to do their best. So it's a big reminder that I have to give myself, especially when working with kids, because a lot of their prefrontal cortex has not developed yet. They are still kind of oftentimes acting selfishly or just not thinking about other people because they quite literally cannot. They don't have the capacity to do that all the time yet. So that's a big reminder for me. But remembering to step back before immediately assuming somebody's intentions. Act from a place of love. Speak to people from a place of love. And as I've already mentioned, a lot of the ability to do this comes from the ability to not immediately react, but take a moment, take stock of the situation. And even if that means having to come back to a conversation later, do that, because I do that all the time. But being able to foster this sense of patience, understanding, and love ultimately is going to be so beneficial in the long run, especially in a culture that is tumultuous and in a society that is currently very tumultuous. Being able to foster understanding, patience, good feelings all around is absolutely helpful. So that's a quick one, but it is an important one. The very last one that I want to talk about, the assignment for 2024, is to be a powerhouse for all that you want to see happen in the world. This is something that I have alluded to many, many times over, but this is not something that is expected, I believe, of anybody 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because we just don't operate in that way. We need to take care of ourselves. Sometimes we need to act a little bit selfishly and get our own stuff done. Rest, of course, but when you have the resources, when you have the energy, when you have the time, be a powerhouse for the communities that need you. And it might take some time to identify what those communities or places are, but again, in a world that just right now needs a lot of help and a lot of support, there are all kinds of causes that you can be operating toward. Even if it's something as small as donating to your local homeless youth shelter, which is something that I try to do from time to time, or signing up for a meal train for somebody that you know who just got out of a surgery, or sending love to somebody that's going through a tragedy. Like, any and all of these things are small steps that you can take to become a powerful force of support and also, again, love. But making sure that you are putting yourself in a position where you have somebody who you are looking out for, because it benefits not only them, but you as well. It benefits so many more than just one individual. Depending on what you're doing, especially, it can serve a huge population of people. So I have really been trying this past year in 2023 to acquaint myself more with community care, and I still have a long way to go. I still have so many more things that I could be doing and places that I could be looking to get more involved, but it's something that has really become a priority in my life. And I believe that if a lot more people were prioritizing community care, whatever that means for you, it could make a huge difference, especially when a lot of stuff just feels bleak right now. So talk about those things. Talk about it. That's a huge thing. That's right there something that I think I could do better about in 2024 and in the coming years. But talking about the causes that we support, talking about it, embodying it, living it, routinely following up with these communities and asking what they need and seeing where you can fit into that picture are sort of the extra steps that we can take to not just make this a one-time thing and like a checkbox off the list, being like, okay, cool, I did my good deed, I'm done. No, this needs to be ongoing. So how can we do that? How can we make sure that this is a sustainable practice for us? Because it's going to need to be sustainable if we want to create lasting change. And I know that most of us do want to do that. Make it your mission to look out for a community, to practice community care as well as self-care. They go hand in hand. And I will say that until the day I die. There you go. Those are my 4 homework assignments. Radical honesty. Radical love, understanding, recognizing your distractions, and becoming a supportive person for any community that you can get yourself involved in. Those are the assignments. That's it. If we can practice even just one of those a day, I think that's going to be a huge difference in the outcome of these next couple of years, because we need each other right now, you guys. We really do. And I am hopeful. I'm very hopeful that a lot of change can be made just by a few but mighty group of people banding together. And I'm really excited to see where this goes. I am especially excited to get more serious about this work and embody it in my own life even more. And I hope that you're here to join me. And thanks so much for listening. And whatever crosses your mind as we've talked about any of these things, whatever your thoughts are, as per usual, I would absolutely love to hear from you. I want to know what your thoughts are. I've been getting some amazing people actually sending me voice memos on Instagram lately. So if you are one of those people, thank you so much for doing that. It really, truly makes my day. To especially, like, not only to talk to people, but to actually hear your voice and hear what you are thinking as you're listening. I just cannot thank you enough. So if you feel so inclined, send me a little voice memo or just chat it up. Say, hey, tell me what you thought. All right, before we fully end this episode, we're going to do what we always do and pull a game card from We're Not Really Strangers, Healing Edition. So let me get those out. And if you don't already have it in front of you, feel free to grab a journal and write down your thoughts on this question. Here we go. Finish the sentence. I need help with blank. Okay. What do I need help with? Ooh, you know what? This ties back to something that we were talking about earlier today, but I literally was talking to my partner about this last night. I definitely need help with, and I don't know, this, I'm getting conflicted because I feel like this is something that might not be fair to ask other people help with, but maybe just some advice. I would definitely love assistance, advice, whatever, in being able to better identify when I need alone time or when I need space, or even in another light, just being able to identify an emotion and state that rather than just like becoming closed off, because I think that's ultimately my reactive response is either I get closed off or I get just like irritable. I do this with my students too. And I can tell when I'm in a headspace that I'm just like, I don't want to deal with this. Like I'm not fully here because I'm engrossed in whatever emotion I'm feeling, but I might not be in a place that I can really outwardly express that because that's not something that I can just like tell my students. But in other situations, it could be completely appropriate for me to say, hey, I'm just like not in a great mood right now. And maybe later on, here's why, if I'm with a person that will be able to be there for that conversation. So in general, I think I need help with being able to identify that. And the conversation that I actually had with my partner was maybe if he catches me being a little bit irritable, kind of stopping in that moment and being like, are you actually just sad about something? Or did something happen? Did you read something unsettling? Like, what is this? And then that can sort of help me to be like, oh yeah, you're right. So that's my answer. But what about you? What do you need help with? Let me know. Maybe we can talk through it together. Guys, again, thank you so much for joining. I'm so happy to be starting the new year off with just some things to think about, some things to hone in on more. I've been meaning to really actually sit with my intentions for the new year, and these are fully it. So if you're still here, I really appreciate you, and I hope that we can do some of this work together. My last little spiel just before I head off is that if you have gotten this far and you liked this episode or you found it helpful, found it necessary, feel free to share it with a friend and let me know your thoughts. Throw me a rating if you haven't already, wherever you are listening. It helps other people to find the show, and that is ultimately the goal. So that would be so appreciated. And I just love you so much for being here. So thanks. And we will chat again in a couple weeks. I'll be on the blog. Check out the blog if you haven't. All my links are in the show notes. So if you care to find me elsewhere, there's many places you can go. All right. Thanks again. Love you. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.